非常欢迎所有贵宾回到我们的论坛现场。第二场次的论坛主题将会聚焦在跨国影响力投资新视野、亚洲的挑战与机会。首先，我们非常荣幸邀请到第二场次的主持人，中华财经高阶管理人协会张立全理事长上台为我们引言。掌声欢迎张理事长。Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Li Quan Zhang, the Chairman of the Chinese Association of Senior Financial Executives.
各位大家好，今天非常荣幸啊，被主办单位邀来做这个引言人。那因为我们的 panelists 都是3位从国外来的，所以呢，我呢一刚开始来讲就准备了英文的这个引言，结果 Sophia 一上来就颠覆我们的做法，是可以用需要用中文来做引言，所以我现在要把我脑袋里准备的英文要再 translate back to 这个中文啊，所以等一下如果各位发现我的中文变差了，请多见谅啊。那今天非常高兴的，我是张立全，是中华高阶财经管理人协会的理事长，那同时间呢也是巨界节能亚洲的执行长。那巨界节能呢是一个做核融合开发核融合技术的一个新创企业。那这个核融合的技术呢，事实上面是很新。我过去来讲，它40年都在金融业啊，算是斜杠以后来参加，所以呢也是重新的学习。那也因为在这一个做这个工作的过程中间，对于所谓的影响力投资的重要性啊，有了更深的了解。尤其来讲的话，是如何能够对于这个未来能源的解决方案要发展去，然后同的时间又要考虑来讲的话，跨境这一些所谓的永续议题的探讨。那在这里面呢，我相信来讲的话，给我自己本身一个很大的学习，也在这个过程中间体认这个跨境影响力投资的重要性。那在我们因为跨境，因为法规，刚才其实来讲的话，不管是金管会或者是我们的国发基金，已经谈到，如果要往这个地方拓展，我们的法规以及政府民间怎么携手合作，事实上面都是一个全新的议题。所以为什么我们在谈永续的时候来讲哈，都要谈到 transformation 转型。其实来讲哈，不仅仅是脑袋里面要做转型，你的所有的环境里面的点点滴滴啊，也要跟着一起要转型。所以刚才来讲哈，那个洪委员呢是在讲说，我们现在开始要在每一个细节都要来讲的话，要去转。我相信他在这过程中间也遭遇到很多的困难，也看到很多的关节点。那这一个都是我们要面对的。那今天我们这个 panel 其实在谈跨境影响力投资。在这里面其实是非常有意义，因为刚才上一个 Sophia 所主办的 panel 也知道，这个是一个全球的议题，而这个全球的议题不是任何一个国家我自己有决心我就可以去做到的。那事实上面有很多需要大家一起来合作，所以这里面其实提到跨境合作，大概都是我们会面对到如何能够做到的这个issue。那我也相信来讲的话，今天与会的这几个语坛人呢，事实上面都有丰富的经验，然后也会把他们在这一方面能够给予的这些经验，让我们能够分享啊，让我们能认识到。那我想我就简单的介绍一下啊，今天语坛人的3位他的 background。第一位来讲的话是从新加坡来的Wei Chu Chick，OK， 他是 Heritage Capital 的 CEO。那 Heritage Capital 呢，是一个在新加坡为 base， 但是呢，事实上面在看的是整个 Asian country 在做。那它利用这个新加坡是一个 financial hub， 一个所谓的金融中心的位置呢，能够去把这一些的经验呢，能够来讲话跨到区域里面完成。而 Heritage Capital 呢，它事实上面它所看到的案子呢，包含到不管是医疗、教育、永续的议题然后都会去做。所以呢，等一下我想他会跟我们分享很多成功的案例，那也会把怎么样做跨境合作的经验跟我们做分享。那第二个呢是 Johan Rosali Wattooth， 那他是 Bintan Capital Partners 的 CEO 那这个 Bintan 这个名字对我们来讲很陌生，那可是我看过他的 presentation 是他说这是他儿子帮他取的名字，所以等一下我们可以把这个温馨的故事让他来跟我们再做分享。那 Bintan Capital Partner 一个很特殊的呢，它事实上面是已经把影响力的投资跟我们的私募基金 Private Equity 能够把它整合在一起。那他们很强调的是能够怎么跨境找到合作的伙伴，然后能出来。那它更重要的是能够怎么样把 impact investment 的这些 project 能够把规模把它能够扩大。所以我相信在等一下他在跟我们分享里面这些部分大概都会让我们有很多的经验以及参考。那第三位是 Fumi Sugino， 那他呢是日本的 Social Innovation and Investment Foundation 的 Chief。 那他事实上面在日本里面一个很重要，我觉得很特殊，可以跟我们的分享的，它事实上面在建构影响力的 ecosystem， 也就是生态圈。那在这里面呢，不仅仅是我一个人在做，或者是一个组织在做，而是能够把相关的伙伴变成一个伙伴圈能够出来。那这一个我相信会给我们很多的一个启发。那同一个时间呢，他会跟我们分享的，事实上面刚才来讲的话 ，Tiif 有在提到来讲的话一些 measurement， 我们如何做 impact measurement 的这个部分，尤其来讲能够做到标准化 standardizing 事实上面也是一个我们现在要面对的很大的问题。所以呢，这一个事实上面是我们希望从他们三位的 presentation里面可以给我们。所以等一下每一位有15分钟可以谈，那完了以后我们就来请教他们在这一方面的问题，好不好？谢谢大家。
非常谢谢张立全理事长的引言，请入座。Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Please be seated. 第二场是主题演讲，我们先邀请与谈贵宾一一分享。Now we're going to the keynote speech session. I'm honored to invite the keynote speaker, CEO of Heritage Capital Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. 韦超直。
各位嘉宾，早上好。那么自我介绍，我名字叫韦超我姓直。那么今天我想呢，我准备的这个 PPT 是以英语准备的。那么今天我以中文来这个做表达，但是我们新加坡人中文不是很好，希望大家可以包涵哈。因为为了节省时间呢，就是我觉得用中文沟通，因为大部分的朋友们呢，这里都是台湾的朋友嘛。好，那么今天 我就给大家准备了一些简单的内容来介绍我们在新加坡的这家基金公司，叫做 Heridas Capital。那么有人问我呢，哎，你们 Heridas 有没有翻译名字啊？我就说 OK， 从来没想过。但是呢，如果要翻译呢，反正我们做的是影响力投资，所以可以叫做合力达啊 ，Heridas 是合力达啊。那么我本身呢，在我这个我是土生土长的新加坡人啊。这个高中毕业之后呢，获得了新加坡政府的奖学金，到剑桥大学和耶鲁大学呢念这个经济学。那么经济发展学这方面呢，其实对于整个经济发展，从这个前期的英国啊那个工业大革命啊，然后呢再看后续的一些新兴市场的一些发展，包括四小龙经济啊，也包括台湾、新加坡、南韩、香港这些案例呢，我当时在剑桥念经济学的时候呢，都非常深入的去理解。那当然，后续看中国巨龙的这个经济发展呢，也得到很大的启发。但是我觉得呢，就是到后来呢，我从这个新加坡经发局服务了10年之后呢，我后续呢我辞职了，然后我到了新加坡的淡马锡，这是国有的投资平台做投资。然后后续呢，我回到我在淡马锡的时候呢，负责了拉美的投资业务，也负责了中国的一些投资业务哈。我是 base 在上海大概3年多。那么后续回到新加坡之后呢，在管了几个这个基金平台。那么 Heridas Capital 是我现在管理的一个平台，我们管理7支基金，大概3个亿美金的这个规模。我们要打造的是一个多基金的影响力投资平台啊，这是我过去8年在 Heridas Capital 呢致力呢打造的一个崭新的一种亚洲影响力投资平台啊。不好意思啊，那个翻下是用这个这个机好，谢谢，不好意思刚才我就提到，就是从我在剑桥的时候看看了全球的经济发展，就是一个巨大的问题，就是为什么有些发展中国家永远达不到发达国家的发达的这个水平啊？原因有很多但是从我个人的这个职业生涯来说呢，我既然投身了这个投资界，我希望呢能够借用投资发挥影响力，用影响力投资呢来带动这个亚洲的整个地区的经济发展。那么而不是说纯粹去追逐一些盈利，但是呢对民生对环境根本一点贡献都没有所以从这个角度来说呢，我们再看看这一页，大家可以看到就是左边我的同事晶晶也在场，是他帮我准备这些材料，非常感谢他但是我看看这些材料呢，这个是从那个 Invesco 的一个报告，大家可以看看左边这整个影响力投资呢，其实确实像刚才的主讲者所提出的，都是有高速的增长。但是呢，从一个地区的角度来说呢，大家可以看到，这个影响力投资的主流的资产呢，分布还是在欧洲和美国美国就美洲啦就是这些地方呢，其实都已经占了80%的影响力投资的这个资产。那么只有20%呢是亚洲和其他地区，也就是说亚洲的这个代表性呢，在全球的这个影响力投资的资产的分布呢，还是相对呢还是比较微小的。不过呢，但是我们也看到它的增长率呢是超越其他国家的。为什么呢？因为比较新兴的财富的制造，其实主要呢在亚洲。那么如果财富的制造率高于其他地区，那么再循环到这个影响力投资的话呢，那其实亚洲呢是很有可能可以这个跟美洲还有这个欧洲呢并驾齐驱的，这是我们共同期待，在亚洲共同期待的一个未来。好，那么刚才我就提到我们这个合力达基金公司那基本上呢，像刚才张理事长刚才提到的，就是我们 就是希望做这个影响力投资呢，就是涉及了不同的行业，包括医药、教育这个环保科技、食品科技、农业科技，这些科技呢，这些科技的投资我们都做过，而且是泛亚洲的去做，所以希望等会呢给大家这个分享一些案例，希望抛砖引玉啊，希望呢能够日后呢在台湾呢也找到适当的一些投资。那么我们过去啊，在亚洲呢投了大概8个国家跟地区，我们希望呢更加的拓展这样的一个影响力投资的版图。好，那么我们是一家在新加坡金融管理局所这个发的一个牌照啊，是做这个金融管理的，这个资金管理的。那我们现在管理了7支基金，那包括呢就是发挥影响力的成长基金，那么投的就是比较后期的一些项目，可能是 Pre-IPO 啊，或者做一些并购项目啊，基本上是 B 轮以后的投资。然后我们也发起过一些创投基金，我们这个已经是到了第2系列了所以这个创投基金呢，我们投的是主要是种子轮还有 A 轮的投资。在这方面，因为我们在新加坡这个投资的范围也比较广，新加坡政府的一支投资基金呢，也经常和我们做联合的投资，来带动新加坡这个起步企业投资的这种发展。那么我们最近在去年我们呢成立了我们所谓的这个 Asia Impact First Fund 我们称之为首善基金，或者从另外一个角度来说，就是不只是影响力投资基金，我们是以影响力为先的投资基金。什么意思呢？就是一般很多的投资基金在亚洲、在全球提到的都是说我们要追求利润这无可厚非。那同时我们要追求影响力，是这样的一个，我们既要这个也要那个我们也是。但是呢，我们更加的就是再推进一步，带动亚洲在影响力投资的这种范围呢，能够再提升一点那么能不能做到以影响力为先的一支基金，就是排序上呢把影响力排在前面，那么盈利能力也很重要。但是我们接洽的投资人有很多是显著的家族企业，那么这些家族企业他们对于行善这方面也很有经验，那么他们听了我们要做这样的一个影响力为先的这种慈善投资就是以商养善的一种思路，他们非常的这个认同，然后呢拨出了一小部分的资金让我们去尝试一下，所以我们跟很多的亚洲的家族家办呢是有很深厚的关系。然后呢，在这一支基金呢，我们也非常的感激星展银行基金会，他们是我们的知识伙伴。然后星展银行也成为了我们的基石投资人，所以我们融了$2000万，就是为了把这个 venture philanthropy 就是以商养善的一种方式，这种影响力为先的一个方式呢，作为在亚洲呢比较首创的这样的一种基金。那么我们做这些事情呢，并不是为了炫耀什么，我们是希望说更多的同行，更多的这些跟我们一起有同样的影响力投资的想法的朋友们、同行们，能不能呢都一起把这样的一个影响力为先投资的方案一起做出来，然后我们可以整个亚洲呢把这样的一个方案推广好，那么我们就是在亚洲这个做了不少的类别的投资，包括这个医药、教育这个食品科技，还有这种持续投资这样的一些投资环保类的 ，OK。然后我希望呢给大家说一下案例因为时间关系刚才的主讲者讲的都是欧洲、美国的这个一个庞大的观点，讲到了怎么去衡量等等。我觉得这些都很重要，但是呢，在美国、在欧洲呢，其实他们在这样的一些衡量方面这个怎么去做报告等等呢，其实呢都在探索的阶段。但是我们觉得呢，我们英文有句话 ，Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good， 就是说我们不要说因为要做得特别好，然后呢根本连起步都做不了，所以我们就 怀着这样的一个心态，摆正我们的心态，我们要做的事情，我们心里很清楚，我们是为了要帮助谁，我们是为了要达到什么目的，不要说为了一套这个体系而烦恼哈。所以我们就着紧呢，就是做一个我们做了跨境投资，也在新加坡做投资。比如说，像这家 Better 是新加坡呢社会企业 ，OK， 是一家领先的这个有10多年历史的社会企业。那么这家社会企业做的是一个咖啡行业。那么这咖啡行业要帮助的是，首先是单亲妈妈。他们有一个非常做得非常好的这个，比如说去采购这个咖啡豆，就帮助了一些这个小的农场啊，就是专门做咖啡的农场。但回到新加坡呢，批发这些咖啡豆啊，会烤制啊等等，然后呢又办这样的一个比如说我们做 Latte Art 这样的一些课程。但是他们同时呢，又服务了很多单亲妈妈，这些单亲妈妈都是新加坡一些比较弱势群体的，那么需要找一门这个一门技术啊，能够谋生的那么他们就给他免费的培训那么让他们有一技之长，然后帮助他们寻找工作，然后打造更美好的生活。所以这家社会企业呢，是我们在东南亚第一家的这个 B Corp 我不知道 B Corp 在台湾应该也蛮普及的。但是在东盟呢，这是我们的这个第一家的 B Corp。然后呢，我们也看到了，在新加坡呢是一个老年化社会，未来几年呢将会达到一个超老龄化的社会，所以这样的一个步骤非常的快速，所以我们也认识到，我们做任何亚洲的投资，必须符合我们当地所面对最大的问题。我们的问题就是老年化社会。那么我们在这里呢，投资了一家这个也是家社会企业，他们就是帮忙做这个吞咽困难就是到了老年化，我们的这个吞咽的肌肉可能会有一些退化，所以我们吞咽会有很大的困难。那么这家社会企业呢，就专门把我们比较本土的一些食品那么能够做到适合吞咽困难的病患者，而不需要说吃一堆像这个玉蜀黍泥这样的一个不知道是什么食物的这种状态所以我们是希望这样的话能惠及我们未来的比较老年化一代的这一辈 ，OK。然后我们也投了印度的一家社会企业。那么我们看的印度，它的问题跟我们是倒挂的，他们是年轻人太多了。这个老年人还没有到老年人的老年化的这个社会。那么我们是希望说，既然是这样，我们需要帮助印度这个就是在早期教育怎么能达到更好的效果，让未来印度的新的一代呢有更好的就业机会，更好的生活水平。所以在印度呢，我们不做老龄化的这个食品，我们做的是早期教育。这些比较穷的学生跟孩子呢，怎么提升他们在认知跟这个数字方面的教育能不能做得更好？所以在这方面呢，我们就做了一些投资。那么因为时间关系呢，我没有时间说到我们在印尼的这个教育投资，也是同样的思路。我们怎么帮助印尼的成年人呢，能够通过技术的培育，这是一家教育技术公司，能让他们呢有更好的一个重新培养新的技术，能够寻找更好的工作。我也没有时间跟你说，我们在东马来西亚呢投资了一家医院我们最近实现退出，那么回报3倍，那么把这家医院呢卖了给这个亚洲最大的这个医院集团，叫做 IHH。那这也是我们经过8年的努力在东马的这个医院呢能够实现的这样的回报。所以如果有人说，其实做影响力投资没有办法赚钱的话，那么你可以让他们来跟我们聊聊，我们可以展示一些成功的案例呢，让他知道我们可以追逐这个盈利，而且这个盈利可多可少，但是影响力呢是不可缺的。好，谢谢大家。
非常谢谢植伟超先生的分享 ，Thank you, Mr. 植 ，Please be seated。而且 Heritage 这间公司呢，取名取得真好，因为合力达，我们也希望能够邀请在座所有的伙伴一起合力达成我们影响力投资的扩大目标。The following keynote speaker is the CEO of Bintang Capital Partners Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Johan Rosali Watt Huth.
Thank you, Richard, and for the very kind introduction earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Johan Rizali Watuth, the founder of Bintang Capital Partners, and I'm honored actually to be speaking to you this morning. Malaysian speeches must always begin with many, many words of thank you. So I want to say a few thank yous before I start. Thank you, Taiwan Impact Investing Association, for having me speak at your conference today. A very special thanks to Charles, Ray, Eunice, and their team for the amazing behind-the-scenes coordination, and also for the very warm welcome to your beautiful city of Taipei. Thank you also to Asia Venture Philanthropy Network, or AVPN, for tirelessly championing the rise of impact investing across Asia. A very special thanks especially to Mark, Merrill, and their team at AVPN for the fantastic coordination. I also would like to say a few words of thank you to my Bintang teammates, Justin and Melissa, for helping to prepare my slides today, and also to my assistant Junie, who helped me to manage the logistics behind the scenes. An African proverb says, it takes a village to raise a child. And given all the help that I have received from an entire village whilst preparing for this presentation, I am most definitely the child that proverb is referring to. Once upon a time, there lived a boy. As I grew up, whenever my family went for dinner, my little brother, my mother, and my father, strangers would approach our dinner table. And they would say things to me and my brother like, "Do you know I'm alive today because of your father?" And my father was a heart surgeon. So growing up, I was always very conscious that the worth of my father was not measured in his wealth, not measured in his titles, and not measured in the positions that he held, but rather in the way that he had touched the lives of those around him. As I grew up, I spent more and more time thinking about the legacy my father was creating and the one that I would one day leave behind myself. So as a young man, I found myself working in London in the world of private equity. I really enjoyed the excitement of my work. I was meeting visionary entrepreneurs, investing in very innovative companies, and working with some very smart and talented people. But during that time, I never stopped wondering, one day, when I have children of my own, what will people say about me to my children? And let me tell you, as someone working in traditional private equity back then, this is a very uncomfortable question to ask yourself. I started to wonder, will people tell my kids, "Hey, your father bought the company I used to work for and I lost my job"? Or would older people come up to my kids and say, "Do you know I used to work for the company your father bought, and then he raided its pension scheme, and now I need to work into my 80s because the money is gone"? And it was at that juncture I told myself, these were not things I will want my children to hear. Why I share this story is because I believe that many of us in this room had similar realizations at some points in our careers. Mark Twain, the famous American author, once said, "The two most important days of your life are the day that you are born and the day that you find out why." And I think one day all of us woke up and we realized that the work that we do defines us and our identities in such a major way. My own impact story started with my father, but the story of my company started with my son. He's the little guy you saw in the previous slide. In 2017, I was just about to start my company, but we were having great difficulty finding a suitable name. So one day in late November 2017, about a month after my younger daughter was born, I came home. And to make sure my younger son, who was 5 years old at that time, did not feel left out, I would always have a short conversation with him when I got home. So when I got home, I asked my son, Aiden, what name I should give to my new company. And without missing a beat, my son said, "Daddy, you should call the company Star Wars." Aiden was crazy about Star Wars and the Marvel Cinematic Universe at that time. So we are very lucky today we are not called Avengers Capital Partners. However, due to copyright reasons, of course, I could not call the company Star Wars Capital Partners. But to respect my son's wish, I decided to use the Malaysian word for star instead. And that is why today we are called Bintang Capital Partners. The company was not named by me, it was named by my 5-year-old boy, my son. And one advantage that children have over us adults is that they have a great imagination, the power to dream. But as we get older, this power diminishes and the realities of the world wear us down. It is therefore unsurprising that one of the things I wanted to do with Bintang is to reignite the power to dream. Dream of a better world where capitalism is more responsible and where entrepreneurs are always trying to solve social problems by using their imagination and innovation to come up with brilliant solutions. And that's why Bintang's philosophy is to invest in impact and innovation. We hope that these innovative companies will help one day mitigate climate change, make people's lives better, and create great returns for our investors all at once. And if we can achieve it, it would be a legacy I would be very proud to leave behind for my children. So what does Bintang do in terms of its investing and impact strategy? We focus on medium-sized enterprises, or MSEs. For Bintang, impact investing is also about preparedness. It's about future-proofing medium-sized businesses in ASEAN for what is to come, including managing sustainability risk. But we also believe in a gradual approach towards readiness, where impact should be a gradual process, like a game of chess. Companies need to think one step ahead, small companies being prepared for becoming medium companies preparing to be large companies, and large companies preparing to be regional or international companies. In order to embark upon the sustainability and ultimately impact journey, companies also need to have the right ingredients in place. And these ingredients relate to a company's people resources, their skill sets, their capabilities, and their systems. The work Bintang does is to help these companies put these resources in place. Now, the right company lifecycle also matters. For commercial enterprises, excluding social enterprises, companies should be at the right stage of their corporate life cycles before taking on added layers of sustainability or impact. At the early stages of a company's life, commercial sustainability must always come first. Then, when they are ready, social and environmental sustainability can follow. My view is that for startups and early stage businesses, allocating the necessary resources towards sustainability can be difficult and challenging. But most important of all, the founder's mindset towards impact is absolutely key. It's hard for companies to adopt impact if the founders and the members of the management team do not truly buy in. And the difference here is the analogy of cycling up a slope where the founder is not supportive and cycling down a slope where the founder believes in impact. We have also found that there are significant generational mindset differences between boomer-era entrepreneurs versus the younger entrepreneurs, where younger entrepreneurs are more willing to adopt impact as a strategy. Now, moving on to Bintang's framework for impact. As many of you present here today would know, impact has 3 key ingredients: intentionality, additionality, and measurability. So Bintang applies the 6 principles of UNPRI as a philosophical baseline for our impact strategy, the 17 SDGs providing a good roadmap for the issues that we can tackle through our investments. And to execute, Bintang has adopted the 9 operating principles for impact management to embed impact across our investment processes. But finally, we needed a way to embed impact into our portfolio companies, and this is why we chose B Corp certification as our methodology of choice for baselining impact across our portfolio companies. So then why B Corp? There is significant overlap between the SEDG, IFRS, and SRF framework in Malaysia and BIA. The Bintang team mapped the SEDG and the ISSB against BIA, and there are significant overlaps. So this, in essence, helps our portfolio companies prepare for the next stage of their journey when they become larger companies. B Corp is also an internationally recognized certification. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Thirdly, B Corp contains a good mix of quantitative and qualitative measures. It's a rich source of data for future research and studies, which will allow us to link financial performance with impact readiness. Fourthly, we also like that B Corp allows for comparability of measurements across companies from the same industry, and it gives us the ability to set benchmarks across the B Corp pillars. But most importantly, again, founders. Founders and entrepreneurs seem to find the certification easy to understand, practical, and potentially also beneficial for their business. So Bintang's approach can be summarized as a Lego approach. When my son was very small, I noticed that he loved to build things. I would come home from work, and he would proudly show me his pillow fort. So I thought, why not start him with building blocks, Lego? But when they're babies, you can't give them Lego. They will swallow the pieces and end up choking. So they have these Duplo sets, which are large blocks for babies under the age of 3. My son was an early developer, and by the age of 3, he was able to read and was good with numbers. And that's when I graduated him to full-fledged Lego. He could read and follow the instructions. And he started building these little Star Wars spaceships. But when he turned 7, he started to learn STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics in school, and he started being interested in how things work mechanically. And that's when I introduced him to Technics, Lego sets which could make machines that moved. So the way the Lego approach works is, the entrepreneur is the child. And just like a child, the child has to move from Duplo to Lego to Technics. The entrepreneur should adopt a gradual approach towards sustainability and impact, build it step by step. If you try to introduce a child to Technics when the child isn't ready, the child will be scared, will cry, and run away, just like the entrepreneur. Now, when I started Aiden on Lego, I didn't dump him with a bunch of bricks. There are some ingredients that I believe made him enjoy the process of learning a lot more, which I also think applies to entrepreneurs. For example, I used to sit there and play Lego with Aiden until he was confident enough to play on his own. That's strong GP support. Bintang handholds our entrepreneurs through their impact journey, and we second analysts to project manage the entire certification process. Now, I used to also play Lego too when I was small, and that's know-how. So Bintang has the knowledge of the entire process from our own experience, securing the certification of B Corp, so we know what to expect. And finally, I can introduce Aiden to other people who also love Lego and who know how to play it too. It's more fun when you are playing with other people compared to playing alone, right? And that's network. Bintang has a good and collaborative relationship with our impact ecosystem partners, including B-Lab, B-Market Builders, and other stakeholders who can smoothen the certification journey. Impact can take shape in lots of different ways. This slide is a good snapshot of the different ways Bintang's portfolio companies generate environmental and social impact. And the common theme that you can see here is our B Corp certification, which is a governance team. Right? In this slide, you'll see 3 examples of Bintang's portfolio companies where their business operations span multiple ASEAN countries. Whilst Blue Planet and Bits Media are headquartered in Singapore, Involve Asia is headquartered in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. However, all 3 are present across multiple geographies. And this illustrates the catalytic role impact capital can have when creating impact across borders. In fact, across the entirety of Bintang's first fund, all of our portfolio companies, except for 1, are present across multiple geographies. We have been able to support all our portfolio companies in their B Corp certification journey, regardless of where they're based. And indeed, just a month ago, Involve Asia became the first Bintang portfolio company to obtain its B Corp certification. Very quickly, this is the Malaysian and regulatory environment for sustainability. The Malaysian government launched the National Sustainability Reporting Framework on the 24th of September, 2024. We are obviously quite far behind, I think, where even Taiwan is today, but there's a lot of catching up to do. The framework is a result of 2 years of consultation with multiple stakeholders, and the framework is meant to be complementary with other national blueprints, such as the NETR, or National Energy Transition Roadmap, and NIMP, or National Industrial Master Plan. The framework includes incentives to encourage companies in Malaysia to adopt sustainability reporting, including tax reliefs and exemptions. So here are some observations that we've made of the NSRF. First of all, the NSRF focuses on large companies with turnover of more than 2 billion ringgit, which is roughly about $500 million. Now, this is good in the sense that it gives breathing space to smaller companies to manage their reporting transition as they scale up. But there are also some drawbacks. Number 1, it leans heavily on climate because it is referenced against IFRS S1 and S2, There's a lot of focus on climate risk. Also, we find that there's a lack of social risks and opportunities being covered by the NSRF. And ultimately, the definition of risks and opportunities are driven by financial considerations. But we ask ourselves, what about impact opportunities that might not have a direct link to financial outcomes? So what are the opportunities for improvement? Obviously, the inclusion of social impact would be a great way to improve the framework. We also believe that there should be a staged roadmap for MSEs, medium-sized enterprises, to scale up into NSRF reporting. And finally, for risk management for the future, we think the NSRF should include strategies for preparedness for things like trade relations normalization, for when global trade relations normalize, leading to onshoring. ESG may be used as a tool to cut out players who are not in compliance. Right? So I think for a private equity GP like Bintang, other than portfolio companies, a cross-border impact strategy involves two other key stakeholders, namely our LPs and our GPs. We need an LP base that is supportive of cross-border impact mandates. And we're very lucky here that the Malaysian government, similar I think to the Singapore government, has been very supportive of ASEAN-wide impact. Secondly, I think we need more collaboration between GPs for impact, especially in the area of non-impact GPs working with impact GPs as well. Bintang is hopeful that the future ahead for cross-border impact investing is bright. But as each of us must play a role in facilitating this future, as was mentioned earlier, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Most of the opportunities we have identified requires collective action from all the players working together. And I think this is where the role of G2G dialogues is very, very important. Governments control DFIs. They also control many of the sovereign funds, which are critical to the furtherance of impact investing across regions. I think there are opportunities to find co-investment niches as well, where countries like Taiwan, Malaysia can work together, say, for example, to create impact within the semiconductor space. And finally, we also need to look at mobilizing intra-region or inter-region LP capital. I think if we were to sell Southeast Asia on a country-by-country basis, we'll find it very difficult to encourage inbound investment. But if we try to sell it as a region, this is where the true opportunity lies to bring meaningful impact capital into this part of the world. So to recap, I've taken you through Bintang's impact investing journey. You've heard about my who and my why, who I am and why I and my company do what we do. You've also heard about Bintang's how Bintang does impact investing. I've also tried to tell you a little bit about my home market in Malaysia and a bit about the broader ASEAN market, our where. And finally, I've tried to tell you, I'll give you a sense of our situation today and the potential for tomorrow, our when. You have heard our who, our why, our how, our where, and finally our when. I'm really looking forward to the panel discussion after this. I hope none of you ever stop dreaming of a better future for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rosali Wahud. Thank you once again. Please be seated. I'm honored to invite the following keynote speaker online. The Chief of Impact Economy Lab at Japan Social Innovation and Investment Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ms. Fumi Scano.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your kind introduction. Thank you, Richard, for your kind introduction. And Wei and Johan, thank you so much for your pioneering work and such inspiring presentation. So today I would like to talk about Japan's impact investing in the impact economy ecosystem. And Cliff and Christina have mentioned about Japan in their panel, and I feel pressure about sharing this, but I'm really here to learn from each other and think about the magnitude of the impact that we need to make and also the urgency. Is the market size that we have right now, is it really matching to the level of impact that we need to really create? So there's lots to do more, and I will really look forward to learning from each other and the panel discussion. So today I want to start a little bit about myself and about Tiif, and then I'll talk about where we are now. So the current state of Japan's impact investing market, and then how did we get here? So how do we build the impact investing economy ecosystem, and conclude with some of the key lessons learned and think about the future ahead. So Richard already have made kind introduction for me. So I will just only add one little piece of information is that I feel actually very special connection to Taiwan because I lived in Taipei for 1 year when I was a Chinese language student, which I will not specify when exactly, but many, many years ago. 今天很高兴有这个机会和大家讨论怎么一起促进台湾和亚洲的影响力投资. So thank you so much for this opportunity. A little bit about Tiif. So Tiif is a foundation that was established in 2017 to catalyze impact investing ecosystem building in Japan with support from Nippon Foundation, which is the largest private foundation in Japan. So really the first 5 years, we have been focusing on how to mainstream impact investing and how to build ecosystem for that in Japan. And we have worked mainly in 3 layers. Number 1 is demonstrating different impact investing models. So for instance, we have been co-developing, investing in Japan's first social impact bonds, and also co-launching and managing Japan's first impact investment fund. The second layer is nurturing impact players. So for instance, we provide impact investing to first-time independent impact investors, as well as more and more recently, we've been having existing financial institutions coming up to us saying that they need some support about impact, how to embed impact measurement and management practices into their financial products. And the third layer is building market environment. So we do this as mainly as the Secretariat of GSG Impact Japan. So Cliff was our former global leader. So we're the national Japan branch of the Global Impact Investing Network of GSG, which spans to 60 countries now. So where are we now? So Cliff already mentioned about Japan's impact investing market, AUM. I have a little bit of different numbers just because I think we've been suffering the yen weakening recently, but according to our annual survey in 2023, the Japan impact investing market estimated to be $75 billion under asset under management. And that was double the size from the previous year. And we've been seeing really the rapid growth recently, mainly around 2021. So what are the characteristics of Japan's impact investing market? Let's look into the breakdowns of it. So if you look into the asset class, actually over 50%, so 58% of respondents are investing in private equity. This is actually, we see the fastest growing group of the investors, which are VCs. But if you look at the AUM, almost half goes into debt. And also quarter goes into public equity. And also, if you look into the stages of investee companies, actually 74% of AUM were invested in listed companies. So what are these numbers saying is that Japan's impact investing market has been driven, the growth has been driven mainly by big banking groups, which are incorporating impact into their loan products to listed companies mainly, and also to some of their public equity funds. So they are trying to make the additional impact through having more engagement focused on impact creation through their borrowers or investees. So if you look at by sector, 75% of responding founders invested in healthcare, which is an overwhelming majority of it, and followed by climate. And other areas are like supporting SMEs, gender, education, which are common themes across global, as well as a reflection of Japan's aging society as well. And what's not on this slide is the geographical breakdown. So 86% of the respondents invested in Japan. So which means that Japan's impact investing market has been driven by domestic market mainly, but at the same time, 40% of the respondents invest in Asia, excluding Japan. But if you look at that, what's the equivalent size in AUM invested in Asia is the only 5% of the total. So I see more room of opportunity for growth here. So how do we get here? I see our journey of ecosystem building in 2 stages. The first is the incubation stage of mainstreaming impact investing in Japan. So this is, we were incubating impact investing models and building partnerships for mainstreaming impact investing in Japan by utilizing global best practices and global network like GSG. So as I mentioned earlier, our journey started around 2014 when we first established GSG, Japan National Advisory Board. And then we were developing different models like social impact bonds. We were lobbying to utilize dormant accounts, learning from UK practice. And also in 2020, we co-launched Impact Investing Roundtable with Japan FSA, Japanese financial regulator. At that time, the Japanese government didn't have any official policy or stance for impact investing, but we approached after we made connection with them through a G20 process. We approached the financial regulator saying that why don't we start informal study group? So that's when we incubated all these necessary partnerships. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into the case of the Impact VC fund that we have demonstrated as a model. So back then, early days, financial institutions still saw impact investing as some kind of investing that you can't really seek financial return. So we wanted to really demystify that in order to put impact into the core of finance. So in 2019, we launched Hataraku Fund, which became Japan's first impact investment fund managed and invested by mainstream financial institutions. So our co-GP is SBI Shinsei Bank Group, and our GP advisor is Mizuho Bank, which is one of the largest banking group in Japan. So Hataraku actually means to work in Japan and also to care the people beside you. So it focuses on an area of future of work and care economy. And the size is $24 million, not big, and we focus on early to growth stage ventures inside Japan. Theory of change. So facing one of the world's fastest aging society, the fund aims to create a society with diverse way of work and life by supporting new future work solutions through investment in the realm of work and care economy, such as childcare, elderly care, healthcare services. We have 12 portfolio companies by now. I want to just give you a couple of examples. So for instance, Kitech, which provides online one-off job matching platform for certified elderly caregivers who want to utilize their spare time. They might be having the caregiver's license, but they chose to be housewife for now, taking care of the kids, or they only have part-time job working in elderly care facilities. They want to utilize their spare time. And then on the other side, the elderly care facilities, a lot of them suffer urgent lack of staff. So Kitech job matches them for one-off job. So it's like a Uber platform for caregivers, elderly caregivers. So this is tackling really Japan's really severe lack of caregivers. So the government says that by 2026, which is next year, we need additional 250,000 caregivers. Another example, so we invest also in a couple of healthcare ventures, such as digital therapeutics, AI symptom checker. This is also the reflection of the fact that Japan's medical system, that our expenditure is really, really massively rising. It's not sustainable anymore. So we need more solutions for early interventions. And last thing I want to mention about our company, Life is Tech, which is an ed tech company, which provides junior high school and high school students coding and data science education. But what they really try to tackle is the problem in Japan that the youth is losing hope. So according to the 18-year-old survey in Japan, only 15% of the 18-year-olds answered that they believe that their country will be better in the future, and only half believe that they can make some kind of change in the society, which were the lowest among the 6 countries surveyed. So like Johan mentioned, we also utilize international global standard and principles and embed impact throughout our investment process. So we are also operating principle for impact management signatory. We also had a blue mark do our verification. And honestly, we learned a lot from that verification process. But what we have been really recently focusing on is the exit. How can we have responsible exit? How can we better prepare our investee companies to continue seeking impact while achieving business growth? So we call it as impact IPOs because in Japan, 80% of the exits are actually through IPO. So how can we help them to face such diverse investors in the public market? And maintain their impact mission. We'd help them to embed impact throughout their management process into their governance and help them to effectively disclose and have dialogues with diverse types of investors. So these kind of IMM practices, impact IPO practices, our fund's mission is not only to create impact for our theory of change, but also to contribute to the market building. So typically, Tiif as a foundation, as the secretariat of GSG, we will organize working groups around the area which has high demands from the industry, such as IMM, and then we will together collectively develop some kind of guidance or some kind of frameworks. And Hataraku Fund will be providing real investment experiences and contributing to the such development of guidances. So the second stage is the takeoff stage. So that is from around 2021 when we started seeing the rapid growth of the AUM. So this is the stage where the Japanese government, diverse financial institutions, and other stakeholders started leading the ecosystem. So it was no longer about us, small foundation, pushing everybody to do impact investing. The stakeholders themselves took the ownership and started leading this process. And we saw the ecosystem expanding from impact investing to the impact economy. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Number one is Japan Impact-Driven Financing Initiative, which was launched in 2021. And when we launched this, it was only 21, now it's about over 80 signatories. And the idea behind it was to have the top management sign to have impact embed in the purpose of the financial institutions and not only the product level. And the Japanese government also started integrating impact into its economic policy. As already mentioned by Cliff and Christina as well, one last thing I want to mention is that about the fiduciary duty. So in the most recent action plan by the government, it stated that even the GPIF, the largest public pension fund, one of the largest public pension fund in the world, the consideration of non-financial factors, including impact, is not against the fiduciary duty. So hopefully this will have a huge impact on the entire financial value. And this year, there's a launch of Impact Consortium, which is a public-private partnership for impact economy. So it's going beyond impact investing. If you look at the founding members, it's organized by the Japan Financial Regulator, but also the different kinds of associations from the capital provider side, financial sector side, and also the business side is in it. So time is up, so I'll just quickly conclude 3 key lessons learned. Number one is we have been kind of importing the global best practices, but the next stage is about how can we identify the practices unique to Japan, Asian countries, and contribute to the global standard setting. And the second one is it's being critical that we develop learning communities with each other. But in the next stages, maybe we can focus more on the issues. How can we have more issue-based collaboration to create positive impact? And the third is, how can we have aligned impact across the ecosystem, from sustainability standards to listen to the end beneficiary voices? So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Scannell. Please remain online for the following panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please join me to welcome the moderator today. 掌声欢迎今天的对谈主持人，中华财经高阶管理人协会张立全理事长。We also like to invite the panelists in this session to come up to the stage. Mr. 韦超直，欢迎执伟超执行长。And we also like to invite Mr. Rosalie Wahud. And we also have the panelists online, Ms. Scannell.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's very informative and inspiring for all of us. Okay, I think Fumi, thank you for joining us online, and I believe you will miss the Taiwan food very much. So next time when we have the panel, I hope you can join us in person. Okay.
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you. So first, I think let's discuss the challenge of a cross-border collaboration in impact investing. Asia is a very diverse region with a different regulatory environment, which can make a collaboration very complex. Okay, so could you share your perspective on this challenge and possible solutions? Okay, who will be the first one to? Right, please, Wedge.
Okay, I'll make my first attempt. This is the easier question.
Easier
the harder
question,
ones
right?
Can leave to
I picked it for you. Right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think that when we talk about impact investing, there are generally two layers, right? One is for us as an impact fund. So as I presented earlier, we are very happy to actually invest across borders, right? We raise fund saying that it's an Asia Impact First Fund, right? And we are always pan-Asia. Now it helps that we are from Singapore, and like you so kindly mentioned earlier, it is an advantage as a financial hub. That's very nice to Singapore people. But the truth is, in Singapore, the market is so small that if you don't look beyond Singapore, it doesn't make sense at all, you know, to grow or scale anything. Unlike Japan, for example, right? Japan, Taiwan, even Malaysia are bigger markets than Singapore, so you could stay local. So for us in Singapore, I think from day one, we got to think regional, right? If not global. But Singapore kind of investments could also make sense if there is a bit of a prototyping, right? Trying out a certain concept, testing out certain things, and then we deploy overseas, which leads me to the second layer, right? Which is at our investee level. So I agree a lot with what Johan mentioned earlier. I mean, the hand-holding that we give to our investee companies, I mean, typically we take a board seat, we take significant minority, we shape the strategy. If there's anything wrong, we do course correction. You know, so we are very hands-on and involved. And one of the growth strategy must be to help some of the good business concepts actually go regional, right? So that is the whys. Of course, practically, there are also challenges because, like, you know, what you mentioned earlier, these regulatory challenges. But at the first layer of the fund, sometimes we realize that, yeah, we do want to invest across the region, but are all investment permitted, right? And I like to say we have to go where we are welcome, right? But, you know, in today's geopolitical situation, it gets more complex, right? But again, that's where, collaboration with fellow GPs in different parts, fellow like-minded thinkers and communities together, we see whether we can make the investment environment more conducive for cross-border investments, because I think different geographies bring different expertise and value add. Now, at the operational layer, I think it's slightly easier, because then you could do a lot of either M&A, or it could be just an alliance or cross-selling of products, right? For example, if our portfolio companies are very good in certain business model or products or services, you don't really need a physical presence if the regulatory impediments are there. But what you could do is actually license, or you do certain kind of partnership or JV of sorts. So I think there are many ways to deal with this situation, and it just depends on what layer and what objectives you are trying to meet.
Johan, do you have any comments on that?
I think that's generally spot on. One of the challenges I think that we face in a very diverse geographic region is that the priorities of different countries when it comes to impact can be very different. So some countries may face bigger challenges with climate change, so there's a lot more capital going into that space. Others may have challenges which are more social in nature, poverty alleviation, for example. I think the challenge is really that we need to move beyond a one-size-fits-all approach. I think Cliff mentioned this during his presentation. There has to be a lot more flexibility in terms of the approaches that are taken when it comes to impact investing. And I think that will help actually the growth and development of the impact space.
Hi, Fumin. I think just like Wei Chu have mentioned about Japan is big enough so you can focus on locally. Do you think there's an opportunity for the other, I think, social enterprise or new startup, they can look into Japan as an opportunity, and how they should do on that?
Yeah, definitely. And I also agree with Johan and Wei about the importance of local knowledge and talent, and also network. So when I look at the companies who are successful in doing cross-border businesses, they definitely have a really strong local team or really strong local partners. So I think the way to go is really, if any Asian businesses want to enter Japanese market, they really need to look into having a good local partner. But I think although there's a diverse culture or issues focusing, but still there are common areas such as aging population that Wei has also mentioned as well. So I think there's an opportunity.
Thank you very much. Now we touch on the challenges. So that's a shift of focus on the strategy for fostering collaborations. Beyond the navigating the regulation, it's crucial, okay, for investor to identify and source impactful project, okay, and to create a strong partnership. What are some effective strategies you have seen for promoting the cross-border collaboration and the sourcing projects within the Asia impact investing ecosystems? Okay.
I'll take this one first.
Right.
I think there isn't enough emphasis placed on knowledge sharing and knowledge transfer. And I think conferences like this are a fantastic start to that. Just by being here and hearing the different perspectives from a lot of different practitioners across the region, I think it's really helped to broaden my thought process around how we can execute better cross-border impact. So I think that's a really, really good start. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is encouraging non-impact GPs to collaborate with impact GPs. I think it's if you think about the universe of AUM, the non-impact GPs have a much, much larger AUM universe. Many of them, I think, do not realize that an impact lens could be very powerful for their portfolio as well, right? So one of the other things that I think maybe we can try and encourage more being done is where non-impact GPs work more closely with impact GPs, and we've had a few good experiences actually in that area. So those are maybe 2 of the suggestions or strategies that I think would be useful going forward.
Fumi, do you want to make some comments on this?
Yeah, sure. I totally agree. So I was rushing at the end, but that was exactly the point I wanted to mention as well, that how can we embed impact into existing financial institutions and traditional financial institutions? There's already a really strong tide of sustainable finance. And how can we strengthen the impact in that? I think is really the way to unlock the big capital. But at the same time, we need to be mindful about, okay, who defines impact? Who is that? It's about the people, it's about the community, it's about the planet. How can we maintain connection to that on the ground? I think we also need to be mindful about that as well.
Thank you.
Can I just add briefly with some real case studies? I mean, we don't have team based in India, but India has been a market that we actually did direct investments in education and healthcare before. And recently when we actually met other Indian investors when our portfolio companies are raising money. For example, there is a UBS Optimus Fund, right? They also do impact investment and they have team based in India. And when we introduce our portfolio companies to them, they actually invested in a follow-on round, which we also participated. Then subsequently, because as we discuss, you know, as we do investments, we talk to one another on the cap table, right? And so I asked them, what have you invested in India? And so the team there gave me a list, and I look at it, hey, this is interesting for us as well. And so we end up investing in one of their portfolio companies as the lead investor. And we also went in to define the impact metrics. And actually all the other investors originally on the cap table say, oh, we welcome you to come and define the impact metrics, right? So it is actually quite a good engaging conversations as part of the due diligence to know whether we are really like-minded. Because when we include the impact metrics as part of the investment terms, right, which we have been doing for the past few years, it could be a difficult conversation, or it could be easy, right? Because if the founders say, oh, is that what you want when you invest with us? Actually, that's what we want too. And that's what all my other shareholders also want. And so we have no disagreement, and it was a very smooth negotiation process to incorporate those. And then what we did is we also got a third party to actually come and validate what the baseline numbers are in terms of these metrics. And then we did a workshop for the entire management team. All these processes are what we have created, which we feel that is a very good way to align all the various stakeholders in beginning our investment. And the agreement is that after 2 years, we're going to send the same independent third party to verify what has been achieved. And that is the additionality angle that we want to actually validate, right? And everyone agrees with our process. And so it makes us very comfortable that, okay, if we can agree on this quite difficult topic, potentially divisive topic, but we got agreement so fast, it gives us more confidence that when you are dealing with other issues like deviations from business plans, we could more likely talk it out. So sometimes impact investing is an end, but it is also a means of actually aligning everyone towards a better outcome for both commercial scale up and also impact goals achievement.
Right. Thank you very much. Due to time limit, so I have to jump to the last question. Okay. As we look to the future, there is no doubt the cross-border impact investing will continue to evolve. So our final discussion, I think, focus on the next frontier for impact investing in Asia. So from your observation, which sector or market in Asia hold a better potential for impact investor? Shall we start from Fumi?
Me.
Oh, Fumi. Thank you.
Okay, sure. I'm sorry. So I think maybe more for East Asia and maybe Southeast Asia as well. One theme definitely is aging population. And aging population will touch upon many sectors actually, not only elderly care, but healthcare. And then what I have talked about, how it impacts the young people's mindset as well. So it goes across sectors. One more thing maybe I want to mention is I was actually inspired by Joanne's LinkedIn post this morning about Bintan had a prize of women entrepreneurship or the promoting diversity. And I wonder that gender equality or diversity is also, it cuts across different asset classes, and then it manifests in different ways in all countries, I think. So I think that might be also another area.
Yeah, I mean, Fumi, you're absolutely right. For us, actually, for me personally, gender lens investing is potentially something very powerful that cuts across, I think, all different geographies. I'd like to just maybe share some very interesting facts. If we look at the economic empowerment of women in Asia, it's very far behind the OECD averages or levels. In Malaysia, for example, 62% of the graduates now are women, which means that there's quite a lot more women who are coming into the workforce than men. They are increasingly better educated, they're more empowered, they have better career potential, potentially. But when we look at our female workforce participation rate, it's still very far behind the OECD. Why? In Malaysia, we have, instead of a double peak phenomenon, where you have women coming into the workforce after they graduate, then it tapers off, then there's a second peak because women come back into the workforce after they've started families. Because of the lack of structural and systemic support in Malaysia, they don't have enough facilities, for example, caring for children, for the elderly. That role ends up falling on women's shoulders. So they don't come back into the workforce because they struggle with the demands of the family. In Malaysia, we've estimated that the value of this lost productivity is something like $100 billion a year. To put it into context, that is roughly 25% of Malaysia's GDP today, right? So I think there is a huge opportunity in an era where productivity is declining because populations are increasingly getting older. You're supporting a very, very large group of people who are above the age of 65. Increasingly, we need, I think, to bring in women back into the workforce so we can mitigate that loss of productivity. So yes, I really believe that gender lens investing is the way of the future, potentially for Asia.
Right. Can you have the final comments on?
Okay, this is tough because Fumi and Johan answered so comprehensively. I would just add briefly that I totally agree with Fumi on the aging solutions. We are talking about healthy longevity these days. It's not about expanding the lifespan, but the health span. Right, and all sorts of solutions to support aging in place, technologies for all kinds of care scenarios. So we are studying that in Singapore, but we think there are a lot of solutions we can learn from Japan. We can also apply some of these solutions to China, Hong Kong, Korea, and so on and so forth. So there is one level of aging solutions that are across Asia that I think is very promising. And then the other part is actually the less developed Asia, I think is still very focused on social upgrading, right? Giving good jobs, training the skills, and also just transition, right? The transition must be just in terms of the climate change, because there's no point talking about, all the, make sure the environment is okay, don't cut down the trees when people are not having any other livelihoods. So we need to balance the E and the S for some of the less developing Asia. Now, if we can do that and fertilize or cross-pollinate the good ideas that can cut across borders, I think these two themes will make Asia a lot more unified and exciting, right? Because we also need to scale, right? It's not just a single country, but multiple countries. Both impact and your scaling of the business must go together, and that will make us a unified kind of impact investment geography together.
Thank you to our panelists for your valuable insight today. I'm really looking forward to seeing our conversation can translate into action in the coming years. Thank you very much. Thank you, Fumi.
Now please give a round of applause to our moderator and all the panelists. Once again, we'd like to invite the moderator and the panelists to step forward for group photos. 我们现在邀请贵宾合照。Ms. Scano, please watch the webcam for joining the group photos. 好，各位现场以及线上的贵宾，我们上午的议程到这边告一段落。接下来是中午的午餐休息时间，下午的议程预计在1点半开始，届时也请您提早上线以及就座。